Welcome back to the Proximity is Power podcast. I'm stoked for today. We got Suli Zinck in the house.
Thanks, Gage. I'm stoked to be here.
Suli's freaking awesome. We became friends when we were working at Active back in the day, but Suli is the first woman to have 3 golden doors, 1 in pest control, 2 in solar. She's the senior VP at Pure Solar. She owns over $10 million worth of real estate. She's the host of the podcast called Sales with Suli. And I remember back in 2017, we were selling together and she sold over 700 pest accounts pregnant. So
yeah,
Suli
so
is
that
an
was
animal.
that was 2019.
Okay,
Wait,
2019.
Yeah, 2019. But I did sell pregnant with my first daughter. Like
That
even my
is-
manager was like, "What are you doing?"
That is the most
on the
incredible feat I've ever seen. Like any of my reps ever complain, I'm like, Suli outsold you by 5 pregnant. Like she's a beast. Like it's seriously so inspiring. I remember FaceTiming you on like during that summer, and
Yeah.
you just about to pop any second, and you're just freaking slinging 10 a day.
Yeah, I think it's like a pro and a con. Just because I have had like a lot of challenges and kind of gone through a ton of things, I feel like, sometimes I'm not as empathetic with like young reps and, when they're having like a mental breakdown or like, oh, my brother just XYZ. And I'm like, that is nothing.
That is
And
nothing
I got to
from
be
what you've
careful.
gone through.
Yeah, I definitely got to be careful.
Yeah, because you were not only pregnant, but you had 2 other kids, right?
Oh yeah. So like my kids, they know that door to door is life. Like they are door to door babies. My
Yeah.
first daughter, I basically gave birth on the doors, is what my managers
Wow.
called it. Like Anarisa is a door to door baby.
Yeah.
And then Bobby Ray, like literally 4 weeks after he was born,
Wow.
we were on the doors. Well, I was on the doors.
That's incredible. So that wasn't even the first time you were pregnant on knocking.
No. And then
Wow.
even my middle son, at that time, it was the first year that my brother was getting into door to door, and I just really wanted to be there for him. And so my husband was working, he was a welder at the time. And so I'd fly here to Utah, have my kids hang out with the family. I had my second son at the time, and I would fly out to California just to go and knock with my brother and his team and stuff for like half that time. And I had
Wow.
2 kids, at the time too. So
You were incredible.
yeah.
Understatement, right?
Yeah.
So Suli, tell us like a little bit about you, where you grew up, how you grew up.
Yeah. So I, at the age of 3, I was adopted by my technically she's like my great aunt, but I call her my grandma just because she's like old looking.
Yeah.
I was definitely raised by some of the best humans on the planet, but
Wow.
my mom had me when she was 16. I wasn't ever taught, like financial literacy. I wasn't taught, or I never had people around me that was just, wasn't living paycheck to paycheck. So I just like watched that,
Yeah.
my whole life, just kind of growing up and things like that. And so I just always had this desire and this vision starting at like age 7 that I was going to create a life for my kids. I didn't know what it was going to look like. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know how it was going to happen, but I knew that one day I was going to create a lifestyle for my kids that I didn't have growing up.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So did you grow up here in Utah then?
I grew up in West Valley City, Utah.
Wow.
Yeah, went to Granger High. Like I just went to go and visit my childhood home. Like the other day, it's still this ugly, beat down house that you probably wouldn't even knock to sell pest control or solar because we wouldn't qualify.
Maybe security.
yeah, for sure. Probably alarms, but I grew up in West Valley.
Wow. So, okay, growing up, not just kind of realizing you did not want to be the person living paycheck to paycheck with your family.
Yeah.
Did you have jobs growing up? Were you in sports?
Yeah, that was another tricky thing. Like all of I would watch like my cousins, they have their parents, they had like good jobs and things could pay for them to get into piano lessons, to, play basketball and things like that. And I knew if I wanted to get involved with any extracurricular activities, I would have to work. So at age 15, I was helping like my aunt and family members like scrub toilets at office buildings just so that I would be able to afford school uniforms, to play on the basketball team and just keep like my phone on so that I'd be able to, text teammates and things like that for like schedules and whatnot. And everything that I had growing up, it was something that I had to physically work for.
It's honestly like, that's so cool because I was the same way. And like,
really?
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of people that I've interviewed, even Todd Peterson, he was speaking at BYU and he said that like the best thing that ever happened to him is his parents gave him nothing.
Yeah. 1,000%. Like I even remember like growing up, just kind of like resenting, kind of like where I grew up, like how hard I had to work. Like who at age 10, 11 and 12 is thinking about a job just to be able to like, pay for lunch and stuff. And, even get like an outfit for like the school dance or something like that.
Yeah.
To after high school. And I was just like, these things needed to happen. Like for me, it was legit the best thing that ever happened. And I kind of feel bad for my kids sometimes too. My oldest daughter, like she's aware. She knows that, her parents have a little bit of money and things like that, but it's never given. Like they literally have to work. Like they have LLCs, and nothing is just like swiped from mom's card without like working for it.
Yeah.
And so I do need to be better about that, but I'm like, you guys are working for everything too.
That's so awesome. Cause you just realize how much that helped you at an early age. And me too, because like my parents, I knew they had the money to do these things, but like sports playing, like we always had to like earn at least half of like whatever the
and that was the
were.
same with all of your siblings.
Yeah, all of us.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
It was such a blessing. And honestly too, like one thing my dad did for me and my older brother is like he said you can't get a cell phone until you get your Eagle Scout.
So you guys were like, how quickly can we get our Eagle Scout?
I literally had to get my Eagle. I think I got it at 14 because, that was like another thing. Like like everybody, all of my friends had a phone at like 12 years old. And I'm like, frick, for me to go be able to text my friends to hang out. Yes. I have to go freaking get this Eagle.
Or just send them a letter or meet them at school type of thing and like set up concrete, time slots.
Or use my mom. I texted on my mom's phone like the first half of my life to hang out with friends.
Like I didn't know it growing up, but like it was the biggest blessing. My upbringing, where I grew up, the people that I was around, like I needed all of that to be able to have the mindset that I do now.
Totally. Yeah. And I'm 100% agree with you. And I've noticed like the friends that I did have that were given everything, like didn't have that ambition or drive I feel like that I had.
No, and I even see it just with like reps and other interactions, the easier that things were just handed to them, the quicker that they are to like quit, give up. Like how many people do you know like in your circle that have either wanted to start LLCs or had like a business idea and then just kind of like fell back, to where it was that they had come from because it was just easier to do it that way. I just feel like, the people that I do know who where things were just given, they're kind of like still in the same situation.
Still waiting for the government to
still waiting. Money. I'm like, holy cow.
So you worked, you said cleaning office buildings with your aunt.
Yep.
Did you do any other jobs growing up?
So not while I was at my grandparents' house. So in order for me to go to college, like none of my family members would be able to help me with tuition and things like that. So I had to do like a lot of scholarships, and I was playing soccer at the time. So I got a scholarship to the college that I was going to, but it was like paying the bare minimum. So I was like working at a sandwich shop, and that was like my first taste of sales, because it was like any tips that you guys get is yours.
Wow.
And so I would do whatever and pick up like however many hours just to like see how much like in tips that I could get just to cover like my gas, my phone bill, and all those things, like literally just making sandwiches at a Togo shop right across the street from my college campus. And so
wow. So where'd you go to college?
Cal State Long Beach.
Okay, so you graduate high school.
Yeah.
From West Valley.
Yep.
And then you go to California.
I leave to California. I get a scholarship there to cover tuition and just some other things. And then I basically spent the next few years there in California, just kind of like chasing and figuring out life.
How'd you like California?
I love the California vibe, but it's not a place that I want to raise my kids.
I get that. Okay, and then what were you studying at in college?
Criminal justice.
Really?
I wanted to be a lawyer full on. Like that was like my dream. I'm like, I'm going to make like a crap ton of money, but being able to like help people. So I grew up in a family where a lot of family members were in and out of jail. And so I've just always like had this thing that I want to get involved with like law and, kind of find ways to be able to help my people. And then, after serving a church mission and, being sold on coming and doing this after my second summer, I'm screw law school.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, wait. So you're in college, you're studying criminal justice and you want to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
And then you go on a mission.
Yeah. So I had a semester left to basically like graduate and go to law school. And then, I end up going on a church mission.
Where'd you go?
I send my papers from California and I get sent to come and serve here in Utah.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Like Utah County?
No, so I basically almost ripped up my papers. I was like, now you're playing games with me. I went through like this phase in life where I was like figuring out
called to Utah
God and all these things.
Yeah.
But the crazy thing is I had never really spent any time in Rose Park, that I spent 16 months of my mission in Rose Park. And I don't know what it was, but I just believed in street contacting. I believed in like knocking doors. I didn't believe in member missionary work. I didn't believe in getting referrals. I believed in going out and, helping create the kingdom and finding,
Cool.
And, my leaders and people kind of saw that, who ended up recruited me, at the end of the day.
Wow. So you get back from your mission.
Yeah.
So you served in Utah.
I served in Utah.
Salt Lake area.
Yeah. So
Okay.
just all in Salt Lake. Yeah.
Heck yeah. How was that? Was that tough? Was it?
It was more so tough because of maybe the companions that I have. We'll just say that.
Yeah.
The mindset that I had, I had a tough upbringing.
Yeah.
And so again, it was just really hard for me to empathize. Like whenever
people couldn't hang with Suli on the mission.
Yeah, whenever the leaders like had like trunky missionaries or people who just weren't doing what they were supposed to, it was just they were paired up with me, and it was just like annoying. And so for me, I think that was the hardest part, was getting people bought into my work ethic, even while being on the mission, because street contacting Baptist, I ended up starting the only and first Swahili branch in all of Utah.
That's awesome.
And for me, it wasn't even the work that was hard. It was dealing with people who maybe shouldn't be there.
Wow. I can imagine being some girl that was given everything and then being companions with Suli, just getting smacked every day.
No, I had companions who were like, I had to work out at 6 a.m. and they're like, I'm not working out. And I was like, I don't care. I am going to go run outside, because I knew that one of the rules is you have to be in sight of your companion. So they were either going to come and sit and follow me, or they were going to get in the car or do something. But I was just like one of those, I'm like, I'm doing it, and I know people will follow.
That's awesome. You raised the standard on the mission for sure. And then, okay, so you get back from your mission, and are you graduated at this point or not yet?
Yeah, so I get back from the mission. I go back to school. I finish like a couple of AAs in criminal justice and communication, and things like that. And then my AP, actually both my APs reached out to me within 7 days of each other, like literally 7 days of me being home.
Wow.
And I think they were just waiting, who's going to get Suli first to go. Yeah. One was in alarms and one was in pest control.
Wow.
And it was like, hey, like you should come and knock doors. Like you're going to love it. And I was like, gross. Like who does that for money? Like really? I was such on a high, like that Suli, I'm glad she's gone.
You just thought like you were way better than that. Basically.
No, for me, I was like, I only knock doors like for God. It's not like something that you go do for money. It was like this little like moral thing. Yeah. That I had like back then. I'm like, no, you don't do that, for money. And back and forth for like a few weeks, they were just like, Suli, like the environment you grew up in and things like that, like this will help pay you for college, for school. And I was like, you know what? Well, he was like, look, worst case scenario, I'm going to pay for your flight. I'm going to have you come out, just basically work for us for 3 weeks. And I ended up convincing one of my companions from the mission, just because I'm like, we're going to just have fun. Like, I'm not even going there to like work or nothing like that. Like, it's a free trip.
Yeah.
We end up showing up to Seattle and ended up being the #1 female rep. And 15 years later, I'm still here.
Wow.
Yeah. Like, and the only reason I went with him
was that Kyle?
So it was Travis.
Oh, really?
Travis Williams.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. And then Rob over at Vivint. The only reason that I went with Travis, because I respected both of them, but I just made like this moral decision that I was going to go with the person who reached out to me first. And I just felt that it was fair.
Gotcha.
And so I went with Travis, and yeah, Rob hated it every year after that.
Wow. So, okay, get shipped to Seattle now.
Yeah.
Bring your companion out there.
Yep.
And how was that first summer?
Man, it was very intimidating for one. So I was like, it was fun because I was around the top of high producers. James Graves was basically someone I was shadowing on the doors.
Wow, cool.
And we all know James Graves can like, sell ice to an Eskimo. And he's like, back then, like a douche about it too. Like had the fancy boats and all these things. And I remember shadowing him on my first day. So I land, I had the script memorized, and then I shadow him on the first day. Like we were in nice areas, and he is just like a little bit douchey. Let's just say that. James, I love you.
I feel like James is a great salesman, obviously.
Yeah.
But he's definitely like a bulldozer. Like,
yes.
You can tell, like, watching his pitch, like, he doesn't take no for an answer.
He does not take crap from nobody. And so I remember watching him, and I was like, if this guy can do it and like be rude about it, I can do it too and be nice.
Yeah.
So my first day was just shadowing him, and literally day 2, I went and sold 11, and of those 11, 9 got serviced, and I was in like
day
the
2?
company. Day 2.
Holy cow.
Yeah. And I didn't know that it was something cool, at the time or anything like that. But back then it was Altera or whatever. They had like a newsletter, and Suli, doing XYZ. And I was like, wow, like I could be good at this.
And you ended up being the top rep that year, top female.
Yeah, I found out what the top female was actually the Williams cousin. Okay. She had did 306 or 307, and so I was like, if I'm gonna do this, I'm not just gonna like be good. I'm gonna do it just to like beat her numbers.
Yeah.
And so I ended up staying 1 week later in the summer just to service the 312.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dang, what are you thinking at the end of that summer? You obviously made good money. You top female rep.
Yeah, it was sad because before I went out that summer, I remember telling my parents and my family members that I was going to go to this all commission based job. And they looked at me so weird. Like my parents weren't even talking to me. Like I was disowned like that year. And so I had something to prove for myself internally.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to tell anyone in my family like what the money looked like.
Wow.
But it was just, hey, my parents, I ended up like sending them a picture of like my 1099, and they were like, what the freak, or like, what the crap. And I remember at the end of that summer, I'm like, this is what I'm doing to create the lifestyle for my kids. I don't know how long I'm doing it for, but this is what I'm doing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what part of it did your parents not like? Just like they wanted you to go get a secure job. They didn't think they liked the risk, probably.
So like coming from like a Pacific Islander like culture, like you kind of just go, you put in your time, you do the 9 to 5, you get your check, like at the end of the week. But they've just never been around. Like it's uncommon for, people to be entrepreneurs, go work for themselves and hope to God that they're going to, get a paycheck. And so for them, just getting into something that was new and so different, that was like the hardest part, like for them. And so I even get like reps nowadays who are like super young, and they're like, oh, my parents are talking me out of it. And I'm like, how long are you going to have your parents pay your bills for? Like, how long are your parents going to dictate? And for me, that's what it was. It was just like, I'm going to dictate my future, or I'm going to go the same path that I've seen them like go through.
That's really cool. That makes sense. I feel like a lot of people try to like take advice from people they shouldn't. And like everyone has good advice, but like I feel like one like good rule of thumb for me is like only take advice from people you trade places with in the area
Yes,
that they're
that you're
giving you advice.
1,000%.
Like, your parents probably have a lot of good advice, but if you don't like their financial position or what they do for work, or then you probably shouldn't take advice in that area.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Like I look at my parents' faith and I look at their parenting and things like that, and I'm like, okay, I would change. I would trade places. You know, the people who raised me, I'm like their culture, their faith, but I'm like, no, financially, absolutely not. I'm not going to take financial advice.
Yeah, because you kind of did. You kind of copied like the way they parented you, as far as like making sure your kids earned what they get. That's cool.
Yeah.
So okay, you finish top rep, and Altera, for you guys that don't know, that's like what Active is now. Like Altera sold and then rebranded as Active. So
it was actually EcoSure, then Eco First, then Altera. Right. I was with them when they were like EcoSure.
Oh, really? So okay. And then at the end of that summer, so you get back, and are you in California or Utah?
Yeah, I was still in California because I was going to school, and things like that. Still.
So you stayed in school.
Mm-hmm. I stayed to finish like the last 2 summers, or after the last 2 summers, and then I dropped out my 3rd summer.
Wow. So after that first summer though, you were kind of like, I don't think I want to do law anymore.
Yeah. For me, it was just, it wasn't even about like law. Like I wanted to get into law because I wanted to help my community and be able to like help my family. And I just felt like getting a degree in that aspect, I'd be able to do it.
Yeah.
And then like after a couple of summers here, it was just like, how much further and quicker am I going to be able to get to a place that I can help and give back? Mm-hmm. Like, is it going to be, another 2 more years to finish like my bachelor's, and then 4 years and then going into debt and things like that? Or is it going to be like going all in here, sprinting for 4 months every single time and finding ways to invest and being able to give back that way? And of course I chose the latter. So
wow.
Yeah.
So second summer, did you go out and lead a team, or what
yeah
happened?
So my second summer in, I co-managed in Colorado, and I forget who was like managing and things like that at the time, but yeah, they wanted me to run a team, but there's still like there was a lot of insecurities and fear around that time, like being a woman in the space and trying to like recruit. I kind of felt it was similar to the mission. Men want to look up to men, like men don't want to look up, to women. And so it was just like constantly fighting that mental battle of like, the stories that I placed on myself of like women can't recruit or run teams by themselves because the guys won't follow, even with the numbers and the stats there. And so I did co-manage a team my second summer, and then it was my 3rd summer I got married, and I managed a team by myself.
Wow.
My husband serviced my accounts. I almost divorced him every other month. And then,
wow.
And then after that, it was like half summers is what I was doing after that.
Were you ever nervous or scared, like being a woman knocking doors?
Yeah. And a lot of people like ask me this question too. And I guess I just have this belief that the universe, God, like my time is already out there, like the way that it's going to happen, how it's going to happen. So why move in fear? And I just, even to this day, like I'm not worried about like being on the doors. I'm not worried about, being in a plane or driving a car. Like I want to live and move without fear of that. So cool. I never had that on the doors. I'm like, if the doors is where I'm supposed to die, it's going to happen. Like, whether I carry pepper spray or not. Yeah. But I didn't. We were always in areas where I just never felt like I was worried about being a female on the doors.
Because I honestly think females have an advantage.
Oh, yeah.
Selling. Like, they're more trustworthy right off the bat.
Yeah.
They're more likable.
Yes.
For most people, right?
And at the end of the day, like, we get an extra, like, 5 to 10 more seconds than a guy would. Like, because there's few of us on the doors, like when homeowners are opening it, like just out of human nature, it's like, let me at least let her finish what she's saying.
Especially I bet when you're pregnant, they're like, holy cow, I got to buy from this girl.
Yeah. And I'm like, and I had so much pride too when I was hanging out, but when I was knocking pregnant, I was just super fat and overweight anyways. That's just the reality of it. I would back then we were knocking with clipboards because I didn't want pity cells. I would hold the clipboard over my belly so like they couldn't even see it, and it would just be me. Like I was just like, you know, a fat like woman, so it would just be me. It wouldn't even be a sale off the fact of like, oh, Fuss, like, you know, she's pregnant or whatever. But you know.
So what would you tell someone that's trying to decide if they should knock doors or not?
That's a good question. Especially for you young people out there. Like I honestly wish that I made a decision sooner than 25.
Wow, you were 25.
Yeah, I was 25 when I started.
25 now.
Yeah, I'm like,
oh wow.
Yeah, you started like when you were a baby.
Yeah, I got lucky.
That's like blessed. But for those who are looking to get into sales, I tell people all the time, you are going to get more value being in the door-to-door space than the company is going to be from you. Like the negotiation
100%.
skills, the communication skills. But for me, what made the biggest difference was the rooms and the people that I was around, because I wasn't taught financial literacy, because I wasn't taught how to invest. Like the knowledge and the mentors and the people who were willing to, you know, at no cost walk me through things was a lot more valuable than me even knocking doors like myself.
Go
like
rewind that whole thing. 100% though. Like, like the title of the podcast is Proximity is Power.
Yeah.
And like I know that being in that room, in that company for that time, like totally helped me grow as an individual, as a salesman, as an investor, and like open my eyes to like potential and possibilities.
People are paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to go and get a degree in communications, to go and get a degree in like negotiations or in business. And it's like you are getting a fast track to that here. And not only that, you are having professors who are literally helping you skip all those years to basically be mentored and start businesses day one if that's what you're wanting to do.
Right.
And for me, I'm just like forever grateful for like the managers and the leaders who basically taught me the things that I didn't grow up with.
Wow.
Like there wasn't college to learn it. There wasn't like family members. It was, you know, you get that excuse all the time. Well, how do you invest? How do you budget? How do you get into real estate? And it's like you get around people who are doing it and you pay them for their time or show them some type of value.
Totally. Yeah. Just buy them lunch.
Yeah.
That's what I did. No, I agree 1000%. Like I tell people all the time, like even if the job was like no pay, the skills and the work ethic, the network and the leadership skills, the leadership opportunity is more valuable than even the money. Yeah. And it's true. And like, like my dad even told me that like when I first got approached about doing this job, he's like, I told my cousin no. I'm like, I don't want to knock doors. Like that sounds like it sucks. Yeah. And I had sold football cards, you know, door to door in high school to raise money for the program. And my dad's like, well, I don't know if you knew this, but me and your mom actually sold 3 summers back when we were in college for Todd Peterson when it was Apex Pest Control. What? Yeah. So I was like born into this industry. But,
oh my gosh.
And my dad's like, I learned more about business and sales doing those summers than I did in a 4-year degree. Like you 1000% should go
I love that so much. Like my kids, like my husband already knows, and my kids already know, like I do not care. Like their 17th birthday, they're all doing a summer of door to door. I will pay for their housing. I'll pay for their flight to get there. But I'm like, if you guys want to go to college, like, and you guys want me to at least pay for an AA on a minimum, you're doing 1 summer of summer sales. Wow. Like I can't wait to go knock with my 3-year-old.
That's awesome. Like, he'll crush it.
Yeah, I know he will.
Bobby Bray, baby. He's going to be a slayer. I was even listening to Casey and Corbin Church. So Corbin Church is a BYU entrepreneurship professor, and Casey Baugh also teaches there too. And they talk about to all their students, like how they would tell everyone to go knock, and it's like the best place to recruit. All these kids are already pitched.
In Provo.
Yeah, in Provo. I
just feel like there's so much competition up there.
Yeah, no, there is for sure, but it's just really cool. And even Corbin like had his daughter go out and sell, and like it was the best thing, the most growth. Really cool. Yeah, I'm so grateful that I had my dad and like my cousin that got me into this because it was like one of the best decisions
Literally,
I
I
ever
mean, look
made.
at you at
Yeah,
25, freaking already like millions in real estate and,
I'm trying.
running teams and companies.
I'm trying to keep up with Suli.
No, I'm also like way older than you. So,
So you start selling really well. Every year you get better. What advice would you give someone that is going out for the first time?
yeah, a lot of people are going to wait till they get to area. Like I know that a lot of people are either in school or they got life and things going on. So they made the decision and like, okay, I'm going to go out, but they're going to finish whatever they're doing right now. And what I would have people do differently is just like from day one, what their off the doors training is going to look like. Like a lot of people think that just like all the training happens on the doors. But what was so different about me was how obsessive I was behind closed doors about like training and writing out my script and like getting feedback from people who were just better than me, even if they weren't even on my team.
Yeah.
But the biggest piece of advice that I'm going to give anyone who is prepping to go and knock doors is you're going to like treat your craft the same way someone would like a law degree or a doctorate's degree. And that's not going to start when you get into the summer. Your prerequisites are just as important as the actual degree itself. And to me, the prerequisite is what your routine and what as far as like your craft before the summer looks like. And not enough people are focusing on that till summer starts.
Yeah. So spending time every day intentionally learning and trying to like master the pitch as much as possible.
Every single day.
Yeah. And I feel like there's a difference between like podcasts, books, videos versus like actively pitching someone role playing in the mirror.
Yeah, people laugh at me, but I'm like 15 years into the game and I still write out my script.
Wow.
And it's like, well, why do you write out your script? I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to pitch someone on the plane. You know, I don't know if I'm going to be pitching someone in Japan who's, from the US or whatever. But yes, like a lot of people are like, oh, I'm just going to watch the YouTube channels or I'll just listen to these types of things. But
which is good.
Yes.
But you also need.
Yes, there is active learning and then there is being active.
Right.
And that is you actually physically putting in the work on said craft that you're going to be utilizing on the doors.
I feel like, tell me if you agree with this or not, but like, I think anyone can be good at sales.
Yeah.
I think it, like some people's personalities, it comes easier to at first.
Yes.
But anyone at the end of the day that wants to be good can be.
Yeah, that was one of my comparisons or one of my stories that I was telling myself, like, and I'm going to be completely honest and transparent. And for people who know me personally, they won't take offense to this. But when I got into the door-to-door space, it's like everywhere you look, it's a white person, and the nice cars, the mentors, the this and that. And I definitely felt insecure in the sense of like, I was telling Travis, I'm like, I don't got the skill set, that these people might have to be able to, make X amount of dollars. Like it was something that I had to learn. And I remember the best piece of advice was like the same amount of work that you put on your mission. If you're willing to put that amount of work into this in every aspect, you will be able to find the success. And so I do believe that anyone can find success in sales, but anyone who's willing to put in the work. And what you'll find, people who either leave companies, leave teams, or says that sales isn't for them, they're not putting in like the work behind closed doors that is needed to be able to show on the boards, like totally. At the end of the day.
I feel like summer sales, especially in Utah, has a bad rap.
Yeah.
Rap. Because I feel like it's the people that couldn't make the summer work that all they can do is come home and talk crap
and
about
complain
it.
and tell people like, I didn't get paid, I didn't get this,
this or that, and it's like, no, like,
this is why I get super envious of my brother. So I have a younger brother. He works, he's a closer on my team, and I remember his first summer, like this guy could get into any freaking house. Like I feel like there are people who are naturally born skilled in sales. And those are the people that I feel like are also okay being mediocre. And then there are those of us where we had to like climb and scratch and peel and do all those things. Like I literally had to work to get to like the skill set that I'm at.
Suli sold 9 her second.
Service 9.
Yeah, that's really good. No, I get that for sure. Because
Yeah.
you didn't stop there. You kept leveling up.
Yeah,
year,
but I
yeah.
felt like, I mean, when I made the decision to go, it was like, okay, what does the script look like? Like,
Yeah.
I need to do this. Like, it was something that I had to like work on
Yeah.
every single day, where I feel like a
Totally.
lot of people here in door to door, you guys are just naturals. And
Yeah.
it's envious.
I definitely don't think I'm a natural. Like,
Really?
I sucked my first summer. I almost quit 3 weeks in. Like,
Yeah, you were also like 18.
I was 18. I was crying on the doorsteps.
You were still growing emotionally.
I was dying. But yeah, once I did decide to commit to work the hours, to train every day, to try to be positive, like that's when I started getting better. And like every year I got better and better and better. Really cool. What advice would you have for going into leadership position, like going from being a top producing sales rep to?
Yeah. And this is still like one that I feel like an area that I'm growing. And
Always,
when I
same.
was doing pest control, like it wasn't something that I wanted to do. It was just kind of like, no, you hit the numbers like this, that's what you do. It was the next steps. It was never a desire for me to want to be in leadership, to run teams, to recruit. I felt like it was just kind of like pushed on me. And I think because of that mindset is why I didn't have the success as far as like teams and things like that, because I felt like it was more forced and it wasn't a desire. As I kind of grew, and it was especially in like the solar space when I made the transition and wanting to find ways to be able to add value, I have realized just how much more I've enjoyed seeing people change, their lives. And so for you women out there, for people who are wanting to look at leadership, for me, some of the pieces of advice that I'm gonna give is like, what is the value that you're gonna be able to give? Like, what are the stories? What are the things that you're gonna be able to share with the people that you're bringing? Like, you have to be someone in order to create people, at the end of the day. And so for me, once I started doing a lot of deeper work and inner work, I found this joy and desire of wanting to lead. And so it showed a little bit differently, the last few years than it did like in pest control, when it was more of like, an insecurity. It was more of like, that imposter syndrome. And it really is just having the desire to want to give value. The more that you have that desire to want to give value, the quicker you're going to get to your dreams too.
Totally.
Yeah. And that's when it clicked for me.
That's awesome. And I feel like too, like, yeah, just trying to become somebody people want to follow.
Yes.
And like bettering yourself consistently. Cause like that's one big thing I see in you is like you're always trying to improve. Like me and you see each other at seminars
all these events,
all the time.
and I love it. And you know how many like reps and guys out there is just like, oh, I don't need a mentorship. I don't need to spend money on an event. Yeah, I don't need to go to this, and that. And I was like, bless y'all's heart, you're gonna stay where you're at.
Yeah, you're always getting better. I love it. And I feel like that's why like we connected so well at Active, because like we just were reading books, talking how to level up.
Yeah. And funny thing is,
strategy.
like, you don't even know that like us older people like look up to you too. Like, I get so inspired by like these young guys, on the doors who are doing things, I was trying to do like at your guys' age, or that just isn't typical.
Yeah.
And it's inspiring for people like me who are still in this space. And so like, I love seeing you around.
I appreciate that, but both ways for sure. Awesome. And then after your first summer, a couple summers, did you just blow that 1099? Did you just blow through the money? Like where did investing kind of start for you?
Yeah. And this is like something that I struggled with too. I feel like it's like cultural based. I had this mindset because I wasn't like really taught, investing in things like that. Like, I was obsessed with Dave Ramsey. I grew up with like an aunt who was always listening to his podcast. And it wasn't that she was like financially free or whatever, but she always was like getting out of debt and paying things for cash. And so I had that mindset. My first few years being in door to door, it was just, getting married to Walter. He didn't even know what I made until we got married and combined bank accounts. And we kind of laugh about it now, but I'm like, oh, now I have to get rid of your debt. And so it was getting rid of like student loans and things like that, like the first few years. But after that, I felt like I still wasn't investing or putting money where it should, because I felt like this cultural need that it was like, oh, I had to help family members with mortgages, car payments, do all these things. Like, I know that I could have been further along a lot longer if I just allowed my mindset to be okay not being liked. But like my first 4 or 5 years in pest control, it was about like getting out of debt and basically, that guilt or desire to be able to help like family members. I didn't even start investing probably until like 7 years ago.
Wow.
And I've been in door to door for 15 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's totally a different culture.
Yeah.
Like type obligation. Like,
yep.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So I always tell people, I'm like, it's never too late. Like, people probably thought that I invested, from like day one. I was never dumb with money. Like, people who don't know me, they would think that like, oh, she's probably broke and whatever, but don't like, I'm just a frugal person. I'm not like a big fan of like the fancy things or whatnot. And so we're definitely gone away from, hey, saving and budgeting and things like that. Obviously we still are, but it's more of wealth building than it was just getting out of debt. And so I feel like my first is 6 or 7 years in the space. It was like, it was that. It was getting out of debt, and it was fighting like this cultural norm that like my money wasn't my money. It belonged to like the family and the culture to pay this, give that, do. And so once I got into the mindset that I wasn't going to do that anymore. It was more disownment. It was more, being looked or frowned upon, in my culture and my family. And that's when the wealth building began, when I kind of cut off ties.
And was it immediately real estate or like kind of?
Yeah. So it was our very first house that we had. And my husband just like laughs, because anywhere we live, I'm like looking for a way to just like make it make sense, like financially, like rent out a room or like do whatever. And we had purchased our first house, and my husband didn't like the neighborhood that I was in, but I knew that it was going to gain value before we moved out. We bought our first house. I think it was only like $150K or something, 2-story house that ended up tripling by the time that it was a growing area in Riverside, California.
Wow.
We lucked out so well. And we ended up taking that cash and literally buying our next house cash, because I was still the Dave Ramsey, mindset of like, save all your pennies and this and that. And then we bought our next property and then just started like renting out the basement, from day one. And then from there, before that, I was getting into real estate with just some like the managers, like getting into like Airbnbs and going in like pairs with people. That's kind of how I started, was people like, hey, let's go in on this house together. Let's go on this property or this duplex. So I started that way before we bought our house. And then I started venturing off on my own, and it's mainly real estate and storage units.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Storage units, something I've always wanted to get into but haven't.
Yeah.
How'd you get into that?
So it was kind of like the same thing with like real estate. So I kind of had like some from the alarm space. I had some buddies who were basically going to be putting down payment on storage units.
Hit you up
and I was like, hey, Suli, like, let's put your money here. And that's why I'm grateful for door to door. Like, so many people here was just like, hey, your money can grow here. And so it was. I think I put in like 200,000 like towards there, and have been collecting the passive.
That's awesome.
Ever since. And then we like a couple years ago put in like 100K into some storage units that are being built in Colorado.
Wow.
And getting passive from that too.
That's awesome. Do you have like a set amount percentage of how much you invest of the money you earn, or is it just kind of see how you feel?
No, that's a good question. And my husband isn't a big fan, because everything that I get, like as soon as a check comes in, I'm like, where can we put it? Like we have about a year's worth of, I don't even want to say savings, like but a year's worth in our account that takes care of, if a unit wasn't rented or if a car note didn't make enough, on Turo or whatever. We have a year's worth in every single LLC. And then anything else that comes in, it literally is spent on some type of investment.
That's cool.
Yeah. And so I'm still like out there grinding. And I know some people have like negative feedback on like, yeah, you don't need to spend everything so that you have this urgency to go and knock. For me, it's not even about like the urgency to go and knock. It's for me the urgency to keep building, because I came from a culture and a place that was just like, if I had it, I need to give it to them. I need to do this.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I would rather put it away towards like my kids, whatever, than keep it in the bank and someone make me feel guilty about having money.
Yeah. That's cool. I remember driving out my second summer with like literally $400 in my checking account because I just wanted to invest everything. Yes. So I didn't even like think about spending it. And yeah, that's what I did. And yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. Now like, people are spending it even before it hits the account. But me, I feel like because I invested like later in life too, again, it only started like 7 years ago, is why I've just become like so aggressive with it too. I just feel like I've lost a lot of years.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. I know. I just feel like I've always been like a really aggressive like investor. Like I've tried to invest as much as I could just because I'm like, the alternative is me working longer.
Yes.
It's like either go heavy, try to earn as much as I can, invest as much as I can, or it's, I'm working longer, Yeah. So
no, and I agree. So having like a husband or a partner who, kind of comes from like that mindset and the culture that like, hey, we're doing like great. Like it's just fine. Like we're like, this is abundant. Like, no, we don't need a, it's hard and it's tricky because I'm like, I'm looking like way down, like my grandkids, like life. I'm not just looking at, the kids.
Yeah. So people looking at you probably are like, holy crap, like Suli's a beast. She's running a podcast. She's a VP of sales. She's got 3 kids. She's married. She has all these properties. Like, how do you balance that?
Yeah.
Or do you believe in balance?
So one, I don't believe in balance, but two, I know that there's especially a lot of like single parents will like reach out to me like, how do you make it work?
Yeah.
I have just been super lucky that I had found a partner that was willing to support me in the entire, journey. And it was like a battle, for us, like the first few years, because we were both fighting this cultural norm of like, the wife should be at home with the kids and he should be out working. And that's one of our regrets that we had like early on, was that, because he wanted to be the provider, he was still working. And then I just had like this prideful thing, like I'm good in sales and like I would be on the doors, that our kids were being watched by our family members and other people. If we could go back and change something through my door-to-door journey, it would be that one of us was home, with the kids at all time. Like we were in a position that we didn't need to both be gone like that long, all the time. Like, and we made the decision that door-to-door would get us to our goals a lot quicker than him being in the welding industry. And when we made that decision together, it was just for me that constant reminder of like, he sacrificed, culturally, like mentally, like things like that. And I'll be honest, like I feel like my husband's a more patient, better parent, than me anyways. He loves the school pickups and play dates and that's
really cool.
Yeah. And all those things. And so for me, literally having him as my backbone is the only reason that I'm able to succeed. But I tell people all the time, because that time that we were like, struggling, there are resources out there like care.com. There are like, members in your guys' church that could like watch the kids for a few hours. Like if you really want it, you'll find a way to do it. That's just always my thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
If you want it, you'll always find a way.
Yeah, you will. Or else you're just going to die making excuses.
Amen. We can end the podcast here. No, I'm just kidding. That was really, for sure. This has been really fun for me to even like hear, because you're such a baller and so inspiring. And I know you're helping a lot of people. It's like really cool.
I hope so.
One thing I want to ask you too is like, what do you believe makes Suli different?
Yeah. Wow, Gage, you're the first to ask me that. Someone the other day asked me what my gift was, and I feel like for me, my gift is consistency, is tenacity. Like that's not something that you can teach. I feel like I was born with grit. Like I was born with that tenacity of like, no matter what happens in your life, like you're gonna find a way out. And I don't even know how to explain that. But for me, it was just like, I have gotten into this space where I'm always looking to solve problems over like complaining. Like I'll complain, I'll bitch and moan for like 3 seconds, and it's just like, hey, what's the solution? And I feel like I've been like that since 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, where it's just always like finding solutions and just being tenacious about my life.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I feel like too, like when you set bigger goals, crap's gonna happen. Like the bigger the goal, the more crap that comes.
Yeah.
And it's just like being ready for that. And it's like, for me, I try and like frame it like life's trying to figure out how bad I want this goal. And so like it's a test every day. Am I willing to push through and keep going and keep going and keep showing up?
I agree. And I feel like the bigger your goals are, like the bigger insecurities and maybe imposter syndrome that you are going to have at the end of the day. Because I feel like there are years where I've just had like big goals and I failed miserably. And it was just that same, conclusion, like, okay, I didn't want it bad enough.
Wow.
I'm even looking at like last year, I set like really humongous goals. And I felt like it was one of, my lowest points emotionally that I was like struggling with and things like that. And it was just like the universe was like, you weren't ready for what you were asking for. And definitely going in with like a better mindset like this year. But yeah, like I believe that the universe, like it really is preparing us, and either you're ready for it or you're not. And every year that I feel like I didn't hit what I was wanting to, it's just that question of like, okay, how can I show up more ready? How can I show up more prepared?
Wow.
To be able to be worthy of said humongous goals.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's your main like purpose in life, would you say?
Like right now, it really is to be able to create impact and a legacy. I want to be able to show my kids what it looks like to be able to have absolute freedom and options. Like I was never given multiple options growing up. Like my ultimate purpose and goal is to be able to create freedom and be able to show my kids that they do have options.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So cool. I love that.
Thanks, Gage.
One thing I want to ask you too is, what would you say is the best lesson you've ever learned?
And I don't even know if I can
answer that. Yeah.
Yeah. But so there's a year I was being chased after legally. The biggest takeaway that I took from that was how valuable I am. And it was one of the best conclusions for me at the end of that I became to like love and respect myself so much more. I didn't realize it like in the process, and it was super hard, but I'm like, holy shit, I'm this valuable.
Like what made you realize that? Just like how bad they were coming after you.
Yeah, well, that and some documents that were wanting to be signed to like, hey, you can't even like sell or knock for any company, period.
Wow.
And it definitely just showed like the value of how scared that people are, or people were of like me.
One woman.
Yeah. And I was like, this little old like mom, like, come on now, like how much damage,
right.
Can I really
Can you really do?
Yeah, that. And then
that's cool.
At the same time, trying to create this space for like women still came with its insecurities, because I definitely relate to men more, and I loved having like male leaders, and I wanted to create a space for that. But also during that time, like recognizing how hard it is to like be an example or get women on the same page while battling, the emotional roller coaster of being sought after. But wow. I realized with, the more people talk about you, the more valuable you are.
That's such a beautiful takeaway from that. Like that's awesome. What, how has failure shaped your life, would you say?
Man, and I feel like I fail all the time in one aspect or another. Like people do see a lot of the wins, and I'm trying to be better about just sharing like losses and things that I struggle with, especially during the summer. But I'm like, I have just learned from my failures, just the importance of consistency and getting back up. Like at the end of the day, there are going to be a lot of people, like we're all going to fail. Like Gage is going to fail at something. I'm going to fail at something. What's going to separate me and my failures is how much quicker I'm going to get up than the person sitting next to me. They're going to sit and dwell, think about that said failure for, 10, 15 days, 7 days. For me, it's not going to be that long and I'm going to get right back up.
Wow.
Yeah.
Something that Jimmy Rex actually said in MW3 conference that we were both at is like the difference between the speakers on stage versus everyone in the audience is we've showed up more consistently for longer.
Yep.
And I thought that was so cool.
Yeah, for longer. All it is consistency. Like people ask, what separates you? Like what's the difference? And for me, I just keep showing up. Yeah. Even with the haters, even with the naysayers, even with the insecurities, I'm still show up.
Yeah. And what's cool about showing up for longer is like, your skills compound, your network compounds, you get better, you get more people, you get better at leading. Yeah. And you probably are making more now than like your first 10 years combined each year.
Like,
isn't that cool?
Yeah, that is like the crazy thing. It was like how long it took me, to make my first million in pest control. And then I thought that was like the coolest thing. And it's just like whatever you think is cool now, it's not going to be cool to you when you hit it. It's just like, oh, that's it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Because like a lot of people like, only do this job for 1 summer, maybe 4, but they never get on the other side of that compounding snowball.
No.
What about this? Do you have like top 5 favorite books?
I knew
yes. Or top 3, whatever you want.
I want to, this is one that I always, because I get a lot of people who,
ask that.
Yeah. And it might be different, depending on, male, woman, whatnot. But because I want to make sure that I get the right author, the one that I wish that I would have read sooner are the 4 Agreements by Miguel. Book. And the reason why it just changed the year that I read it was the year that I started investing. And I was like moving away from like these cultural norms and these things that I kind of grew up with. So I would definitely do the 4 Agreements. I would do The Power of Now. Definitely life-changing. And then... where are the habits? The Miracle Morning. The Miracle Morning is something that like when I was doing my one-on-ones, I would get all the girls to
do savers.
Yeah. Well, that and just recognizing that your habits or your day doesn't start that day. It starts the night before.
Wow.
Totally.
And, those are great.
Yeah. Those are my top 3.
Savers is such a good like acronym for a great way to set up like your day and success. And I feel like a lot of people that are successful do savers
without even knowing
it.
I agree.
I love that. How do you approach work on days you're not motivated? Or is Suli always just ready to freaking fire?
No, people are just like, Suli, you're always just like excited and happy and all those things. And I'm sure everyone's heard that quote, it's not even about the motivation. Discipline is always gonna outwork your motivation. It's only gonna last for so long.
Yeah.
And that was the thing for me. It was just building like such strong habits that even like I had like a slump for a couple of months, like just emotionally. And I stuck to the habits that I knew that I should be doing. Cause once I got out of the slump, I was gonna look back and be like, I would have either been pissed at myself that I didn't keep going, or what had happened was I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that I kept doing
even though
those things. But yeah, for me, especially like as a leader and a manager, it's hard to show those bad days because I'm like, I know that they're going to be out there in the trenches and I may be their only form of positive influence for that day. But what a lot of people don't recognize is I'll set alarms in my phone to say, hey, remember to cry about this tonight when you get home. Like, hey, remember to whine and bitch and moan about this because you were upset in the moment, but you didn't have like a few seconds, to be able to do that. But it's one of the reasons why I typically drive to area by myself. I'm either finding time to, just release emotions, scream, yell, cry, this, that, and the other, Marco Polo, my circle and things like that, so that I am prepped when I do show up for the team or show up on the doors. I'm just sticking to the habits that I've set up.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've heard like a really cool definition of discipline is doing something that you should do even though you're not motivated.
Yes, even though you don't want to.
And
yes.
and 90% of the time I'd say, you know, you don't feel motivated to get up and go knock doors and get your butt kicked, you know.
Yeah, you talk to any of the top
if
people.
It's raining or something, yeah.
Yeah, it's not like, hey, we all want to go and like knock doors all day, every day. But the reminder is what it looks like after.
Yeah.
Like the freedom is always at the forefront on my bad days. Like,
and a lot of people like make really emotional decisions on bad times. I'm like, you can't quit when it's raining on a Monday. Like
that was for sure me. Super emotional, super like, I'm done with this. Like, you know, every year I'm done with summer sales, and it was very, you know, emotional. And then at the end of the summer, it's like I'm signing back up.
Yeah. What's something you've done that we should all do?
What is something that I have done? Hiring a mentor that has nothing to do with your company or your team. Someone who's just super objective. Best money spent on that, and a therapist who, again, has absolutely nothing to do with the company. It's just someone to be able to like check in, and it's made all the difference for me.
That's really good.
Yeah.
I hired Tony Robbins.
I definitely have to go to one of his events.
You
like,
need to. We need to go.
Yes, I want to be just as obsessed as you with him.
I totally forever. But no, for sure. Like that's been an absolute game changer. Not just like career wise, but like every aspect.
Yeah,
like,
life.
Yeah,
like period.
Yeah. What are some of your favorite habits?
What are some of my favorite habits? I do love to move my body. I am like very big on like, and I don't even want to use the word like work out, because it could be like negative for those who do it way too much. But one of my habits is I make sure that I'm moving my body like every single day. Two, I'm reading or I'm learning. I wasn't educated a ton on certain things like real estate. I don't know what the latest music is because in my car, I only ever listen to podcasts or I'll listen to books. And so that's something that I do like every single day is something's playing in my car that's teaching or inspiring me.
Love that. Guys, that's one thing everyone could go do today. And like that's made the biggest one of my key habits, I'd say, is like 7-10 years ago, I was listening to Brian Tracy, and he said that the number one thing you can do is anytime in your car by yourself, you have to turn that into your like car university. Yeah. And like be listening to podcasts or books. And I've done that since, and that's how I've been able to read 600 books, you know, like
well,
you're in your car so much.
And what people don't realize is when you're on the doors, like having those negative days and having like the negative mindset, it's because your brain is so in tuned or like so disciplined on like books and things like that, that you're able to like remember those things. You're able to like, okay, like I just read David Goggins, let me stop bitching and get up and go, you know, like knock
or listen
doors.
to Suli's podcast before the doors. Yeah.
100%
though, because I feel like if you don't put good things in your mind every day, you're going to get bad.
Yeah.
So you have to be intentional and make it a daily habit to like feed your mind.
Yeah. And I was even doing that like a few summers, like in between doors especially when I started wanting to get into investing. So in between doors, I would have like the AirPods and I would be listening to Dave Ramsey or Everyday Millionaire just to like keep that smile. Wow. It was more just about the energy that I was having to go and get that because in between doors, I was learning what it was like to be an everyday millionaire.
Wow.
You know,
that's awesome. I remember my first summer, I was really struggling and I didn't even have AirPods. They weren't even out yet. I had earphones and I was listening to Ed Milet's podcast and I'd literally take them out when they had but that's awesome. How do you spend your free time?
The reason I started like sticking around in this job is traveling. I grew up never being able to have the funds to travel, and every single month since I've been in like door to door, my kids are in some different state or country. We've probably been to more countries than most people read about in storybooks.
Wow. What are your top favorite countries you've traveled to?
Okay, India, amazing. Like
Really?
their food.
Wow.
Yeah, like Japan I recently went to, and oh my gosh, I want to go there monthly. Like we're
Yeah,
already looking up
really?
cherry blossoms for next month.
No way.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
Just to go. But Japan, for sure, India. And I actually loved why can't I even think of the don't tell me. Israel. So I traveled with my son and my daughter alone to Israel. And I remember someone commenting, "Oh, you're going to go travel out there alone by yourself. Like, you know, like this, that, and the other." And I'm like, dude, like, you can travel to West Valley and have that same mindset. Like you guys have never been to these countries that you guys are believing everything that you guys see on TV. I'm like, a lot of these places that I've traveled to alone have been more safe
than the United States.
Yes. Yeah. And so with my free time, it's either on a trip or planning one.
That's so cool. Yeah, me and my wife, like, love traveling. I would love to take my family, you know, on trips and stuff like that. But like, I feel like traveling's so cool because it totally opens your mind to how big the world really is and
we
how
are
small
pebbles.
you really are.
Yes, like we really are pebbles.
And just like learning and seeing different cultures, how different people live, how different people eat.
Yeah. One thing I like to do with my kids, and it's why, you know, I laugh sometimes when I travel with like reps who aren't like used to traveling. We do a lot of lessons. And so we went to Peru one year, and I went with one of like my good friends because she grew up from there. And I knew the environment that she grew up in, and I wanted my kids to live in it, you know, for like a full 5 days, or cold showers, washing like our clothes and like so putting it out and things like that. It was just really, you know, it's humbling to be able to like see. And when we would travel, we would always go and buy clothes from like thrift stores or savers. And because when we would travel to these countries, I would basically have my kids give away their clothes or leave in, and we would come home like empty handed. Like those are things that we're, you know, able to do because of the space that mom's
so
in.
Cool.
You know, so.
Like I'd love to take my family to somewhere in South America or, you know, Africa or something and like go give back.
Yeah.
Because like I remember going to Ecuador a couple times with Active and just seeing how different people live, like these huts with freaking guinea pigs running around on the dirt.
So humbling.
You know, they're working from sun up to sundown just to survive. You know, for their family.
It's very humbling.
It's cool. What advice would you give someone who is listening to this that wants to become more like Suli?
One, don't become like me, become better. But the biggest thing that I always tell people, the more that you can learn to love yourself. It took Suli a long time. Like being in the door to store space for 15 years, people can see like the accolades, they can see like the numbers. But I was very low key, like insecure. I wasn't like too impressed with like the woman that I saw like in the mirror, you know, until about like 2017, 2018, I started falling in love with myself because I was doing the work. The more that you start doing the work on yourself, the easier it's going to be for you to navigate your life. Like you're going to be okay being rejected on the doors. You're going to be okay being rejected by a manager or being rejected by, you know, a company because you are okay with the person that you are. And I think that's just what it is. For me, like if I could go and change something, it would have been to start the personal development work on myself a lot sooner than I did.
How would you tell someone to go love themselves better?
Yeah. One, you're going to start with therapy. And that's what happened for me, being able to get a mentor and getting involved in programs, you know, that was teaching gratitude, like journaling, getting involved, you know, with therapists to go back to childhood traumas and, you know, finding ways to retell the stories that I was telling myself was some of the biggest things that I needed to do and a lot of the breakthroughs that I needed to be where I am.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what? You know who's a really good therapist?
Who?
Tony Robbins.
Fussing wasn't Gage. Tony Robbins, if you haven't heard your name 80 times from this kid, like sponsor him already.
Hey, he literally inspired the name of the podcast. He talks about proximity is power all the time. So that's where I got the name from. But no, 100%. He'll put you through these deep, dark meditations. And like at the end of it, people are just bawling, screaming, crying. And like you really uncover. Like, for example, I went to Date with Destiny this December with, Zach and Doug Cartwright. And Date with Destiny is really cool because the first 3 days is figuring out the programming of who you are. And like from all the external factors, the influences, that's the first 3 days is uncovering who you truly are, what principles, what values, what goals you've had. How did Gage become Gage to date? And then setting goals for the future and reprogramming your entire conscious mind of who the person you need to become to go hit the goals. Yeah. And it was like the most crazy, beautiful thing. But like in that, I realized so much about who I was, relationships I needed to go fix. Like I healed the relationship with my dad. Like my wife and I are like on another higher level because of that. Like it was the most beautiful, like best week of my life.
I need to go check out some of his meditations.
Yeah, they're phenomenal. But Tony actually got his start as a therapist. Like he'd tell people on the radio to bring, like to have therapists bring their worst patients that they couldn't cure for 10 years onto the show, and he'd cure them in 30 seconds. What? So literally he announced that. He's like 21 years old. He announces it, and this guy gets on a call with him on the radio, and he's like, well, I got this lady with a snake phobia. There's no way you can cure this lady. And so he's like, bring her tonight at this like hotel conference center. Bunch of people show up. This guy with this lady who's like scared of snakes come up, and sure enough, within couple minutes, she's completely cured of snakes. Cow.
Like, okay, now I need to go listen to some of his meditations.
He's a freak. No, but great advice. Like for sure, you become the person you are. Like from like nobody chooses the programming that they were born with, and like how they grew up, and like you really have to understand that to go.
Go and unravel
reprogram it.
Yes, reprogram. Yeah. And for me, it took people who were experts in that field. Like Suli wasn't an expert, or else I would have been doing it myself. Totally. And so being able to have like those outside resources walk me through and, do the work on a weekly basis, it definitely was the journey for me to start.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Really cool. Last question we'll end with is, the podcast is called Proximity is Power. Yeah. How has being in close proximity with people that you look up to like helped your life? I mean, you've talked about it a little bit already.
Yeah, but no, for me, again, growing up in like the culture, the community that I have, I knew that I needed to put myself around people who were living the lifestyle that I wanted to. And for me, it's going to be like the same thing in sales. I mean, if you look at a lot of like the industries, a lot of the top producers are coming, from like the pest space and things like that. And I knew transitioning into the solar space that if I wanted to excel somewhere, it was going to be with the top of the top. And Blake Randall at the time was like the number one, Good Leap rep for all of solar. And I was like, I don't care what the company is or isn't doing or like whatnot, but it was like, if he was going to be the one to like mentor and train me, I didn't care what it looked like. I knew that I would be able to find success. And that was like the biggest thing for like me as well. When I started having those double digit days in pest control, it was being around Brigham Lindsay and actually co-managing a team with him, and him literally saying like, the difference between me and you is I know that I'm going to go do 10 today. You're asking yourself whether you're going to go and do 10. And it was like this mindset shift of like, I'm servicing 10 every single day. And then to transition into the solar space, I knew that I just needed to be with someone at least once, before I go and like fly on my own to be able to do the same thing. And watching that training and being around someone so humble and so eager to be able to help, I was like, holy cow. I just needed like a month or so. Wow. And being in the rooms and being around just one person, it always just made the difference for me financially, physically, spiritually, and emotionally.
100%.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool. And I feel like too, when I was at Aptive, like I only sold 150 my first year, and like,
At 18.
yeah, at 18. But I really wanted to go excel. So what did I do? I went and read books of
Yep.
top selling people, listened to podcasts
Yep.
of top selling people, watched YouTube videos. But then on not only that, I took successful people to lunch. I took Brigham, Brad
Yeah.
Farr, you know,
All of
all
them.
these people to lunch, and I'd pick their brain and ask them a question, or even record it.
Yeah.
Like, I still have a lot of those lunch interviews recorded, and just by surrounding myself with those people, I eventually got to, you know,
To the top. Yeah. And people don't realize it's like they don't necessarily need to be on your team or in your company or whatnot.
Totally.
Like reach out to it. Like so many people are just like closed off and not thinking outside the box. Like
Go
if you're in
listen
a
to a
company,
podcast.
if you're in
Yeah.
a company or on a team where you don't feel like you're getting the right culture or the right tools, it's like, what are you doing to be able to provide value there?
Yeah.
And who are you reaching out to and what type of education are you doing on your free time?
100%. How you use your free time is so important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. This has been amazing. Like,
Thanks.
I've gotten so much value. I know you guys have. If people wanted to connect with you, Suli, you have your podcast. It's called Sales with Suli.
You can find it on any podcast platform. And then you can also find me on Female Knockers Unite.
Awesome. Yeah. Instagram. And I'll have her link too in the description. But thanks again, Suli, for being here. This has been so much fun. You've been a great friend, great inspiration, and you continue to dominate. And I'm excited. I'm excited to continue to watch you grow, and we'll have to for sure catch a Tony Robbins seminar here soon.
Yes, same Gage. Thanks for the space and the time and letting me be the first female to be on your podcast. That's right. So
hey, not the last.
Not the last. I might not be the last.
I needed 14 episodes in. We need to mix it up. But thanks again. And if you guys did get value, go follow Suli. She's a beast. And yes, share this episode with a friend and go check out Suli's podcast.
Thanks,
and
Gage.
Until next time.
See ya.
Peace out.